Hello Flosstube, welcome to Snickerdoodle Stitch. My name is Kathleen and this is a channel about cross stitch. I hope you all are having a fantastic day today and this weekend. It is Friday and my day was so-so. I had the day off work, that's always a good thing, but I had to deal with DMV this morning and it lived up to its stereotype. Normally our DMV here is actually very efficient, but I had one problem after another this morning and it took me 2 hours, which should have taken me about half an hour. So that was the start of my day, and then I had planned on participating in a community yard sale tomorrow, but I discovered after a little poking around that they didn't advertise it at all. They've got one sign out at the front end of the development, but it's really like in the median once you've turned into the development, so nobody's going to see the sign except for the people who live in the development, and we already all know about it. So I'm in the very back of the development on a cul-de-sac, so nobody's going to find it. It's just not even going to be worth it. So I'm going to stitch tomorrow. Actually, I'm going to do some yard work, but I'll get some stitching in too, hopefully. But I've got lots to share. I did start on some Halloween, but I finished out some samplers September, and I worked on a couple of my focus pieces. So I've got a lot of stitching to show. I have a little bit of haul from Stitching in the Wild, which, speaking of Stitching in the Wild, I did see on the Facebook group the first was the day they invoiced all of us who wanted to return, and they posted on the Facebook group that they still have like 21 spaces, I think. So anyone interested in that, there are openings for next year. But I have a little bit of haul. I showed this stuff 2 weeks ago that were the things that I had bought, but I didn't show the stuff from the freebie table and the patterns that were in the registration bag. Although I don't have all of the patterns from the registration bag, but I have most of them. So I was gonna show those. But let's dive into the stitching. So I was dying to start this one. And so I started it on the 1st because that was October. And it's Halloween. That's why I didn't start it till the 1st. But it's one that I bought when I was at Stitching in the Wild. And it's Lila's Studio Trick or Treat. And I want to do the little witch with the cat. I like the other one, but I don't like the expression on her face. I mean, I guess I could modify it so it looks like the other witch, but this one, I don't know, she looks a little frowny in a way that the other one doesn't. And I think it's just the angle of the eyebrows. Yeah, that's exactly what's doing it. I don't know. This is, I just realized they both have cats. This is the one that they had both of these there. They had the trunk show of Lila's Studio, and that's the one that I wanted to stitch. The one with the witch's hat and the little stars on the hat, because I love her little face. So I started it, and I made pretty good progress. I got the witch done and the cat, and I started on the pumpkin. So all that I really have left is this pumpkin and the moon, and then there's some falling leaves and stars. I stitched on the called for Vintage Stormy Night. Let me double check that. Now I'm second guessing myself. Yes, Vintage Stormy Night. Their model was on 40 count. This is 32 count. And it's with the called for flosses, except for the cat. So it's kind of hard to tell on here, but this is all of the blacks are overdyed, and this is onyx, but this hat is actually raven, and the cat was to be raven, but I don't know if I can get the color to come through. Raven actually has green in it. It's a very dark olivey green, and I don't want my cat to be green, so I did my cat in onyx. But other than that, it's all the called for, and it's only a few specialty flosses, really just the black, the yellow, and it didn't have a lot of variegation. I would probably just use the DMC equivalent. So the two blacks and the yellow are really the only overdyes. The rest is DMC. The purple is called for as an overdyed as well. I use the DMC equivalent that they gave because this is all of the purple that's on this. And so I don't think that anything from an overdye was really going to pick up in these two little tiny pieces or in these little bits down here. I was a little surprised the pumpkin wasn't overdyed, and I debated doing it overdyed because it is a fairly large solid piece, but I'm just going to do the DMC. But she's really cute. I'm happy with the way she's coming out. So I may even have her FFO'd next time. We shall see. That's why she's still in the Q-Snap, because I've just been working on her. Well, not only her, but I just started her on the 1st, so I only had a couple nights work on that one, and I may just go ahead and finish it now before I move on to stitching something else. This next one, I actually started when I was at Galleria, and in all of the stuff that I had and that I was unpacking and everything, I missed showing you this one. It was stitched up in one of the shops there, and I just fell in love with it. It's very silly and whimsical for a Halloween piece with skeletons. But it's from Plum Street Samplers, and it's called Bony Bunch. And they were just so silly the way they're doing their acrobatics and holding that little cat. I will say a tricky thing on this one, the eyes on those pumpkins are actually 1/1. And it's 2 rows, essentially, of 1/1 to do the eyes on the pumpkins, and I think the cat too. The regular skeletons didn't have that 1/1, but the cat and the pumpkins do. And I am doing this on 36 count. It still has the tag on it. Here it is. Fabrics by Stephanie Midnight Tryst. It's a really pretty blue. I'd love to do a Mira on Midnight Tryst, but the beads work best on 32 count for Miras. But I made pretty good progress on that one. It goes fast. The skeleton on the bottom doesn't have the black outline around his eyes or his mouth and stuff, so he's a little less detailed, but that's as wide as it will be, the black border at the top. And then it's not a lot longer. So on 36 count, this is pretty small. And other than the 1/1, it goes pretty fast. So hopefully I'll be getting some more in on that soon. I'm looking to see what size this says. I've got all my floss stuffed in here. It doesn't say. All right, we'll see that later. All right, this next one, I promise I'm not all Halloween. I got a couple pieces coming up that are not Halloween, but I seem to be getting the Halloween out of the way at the beginning. So I got back from Galleria, where a lot of the shops had Halloween stuff. That was like the shop where I got the Plum Street. That was almost all she had with her, was Halloween themed things. And then of course I went to Garon and to Stitching in the Wild, and everything's very heavily Halloween there, between time of year for that retreat and just Gary liking Halloween. A lot of Halloween happening at the retreat and at his shop. But I was trying to stick with my sampler September. So I do have a couple samplers. But this is one that I started. I've had it kitted up for 2 years. And it's Midnight Watch from Blackbird Designs. And the photo on this does not do it justice. I have seen this stitched up. My local shop, Hodgepodge, has this on their back wall in their Halloween section. And I fell in love with it there, and that's where I bought the pattern then, because I loved the model that they had. And other than the black cat, it's just very fall-like. I mean, the black cat kind of, well, not kind of, it does make you think Halloween, but it is just a really pretty fall piece. And if you weren't a sampler person, just the top part would be, you know, you could just take this border and not do the alphabet. I plan to do the full thing, including the alphabet, but we'll see when I get down there on it. I may change my mind on that. This one, I am stitching on 32 count fiber on a whim, Milk and Honey. And I pulled the fibers out because, look there, that's the side. The colors are just gorgeous in this one. Just really pretty fall colors. Yeah. I just love these colors. And I made pretty good progress on it. So I started on the border, and then I worked on this. So I have it done all the way down, the stem at least. I don't have, there's little like flowers that go on this, and I didn't have the overdyed that I needed. I have it now, but this one's stitching up pretty fast. We'll see when I get to the big house. You all know how much I love stitching houses, not. And that big moon. They're both going to be a bit of a beast, but. And I just looked through my stash. I mean, this has been kitted, including with the fabric, for a couple years, but I remember when I kitted it, I looked through my stash for fabric that looked like the picture. The picture, the colors in the picture are pretty true. And so that's how I landed on the fiber on a whim, Milk and Honey. I use cream and sugar a lot. I don't use Milk and Honey as much. It is a darker color. It's a darker cream. The cream and sugar is, but. So this will continue to get some love, possibly even up through November, since other than the black cat, and since I'm a cat person, the cat thing doesn't, that by itself doesn't scream Halloween for me. So I may work on it through November. All right, you get a break from the Halloween stuff now. My focus pieces, because those were starts. Too many starts, but the two are small, so I should get those done probably by my next video, if not by the end of October anyway. So my Modern Folk Embroidery, put a bird on it. That's the stitch along that EJ from Sunshine Stitchers is hosting. And we should be done in November, I think, with December as a catch-up month maybe. And I made more progress, but the jury's still out on whether I will get it finished. Oh, I meant to grab, I did find a lighter blue that I'm going to use to come in and fill in the, well, hang on a sec. I have my project bag for this one here. Because let me see what you guys think. All right, so first, this is what I worked on, was this bottom corner. So I got this done. I've started here on what will be the next motif. So I'm making pretty good progress. I am doing this with, this is on some Lugana that I hand dyed myself. I want to hang this in my family room, and so I was looking for just the right blue that won't clash with the walls. Are actually painted a grayish blue in there. So I needed to make sure I had a blue that wasn't too purple, wasn't too green, that was going to work. And I was trying to just use fabric that I had, but I didn't have anything in my blues that were gonna work, so I dyed Lugana myself. And it's easy to dye Lugana if what you want is a really pale color. It does have some modeling in it. It doesn't show up on camera. It's very subtle because the dye is so light. I mean, you could kind of see it down here, I guess, but so I'll hold up closer the section that I worked on this time. And you can see a little bit of the variegation in the threads. But what I was doing, something smaller. So this is the, no, this is the blue that I'm using. It's Classic Colorworks Belle Soie. And it's Mirror Blue. And you can see in the strands that it does look variegated, but stitching it, the variegation doesn't show up nearly as much. So I was a little disappointed in that. I did, because I bought skeins of this a couple different places. This one is darker. So it's the same Mirror Blue, but it's darker. So that's one option I could use to put the alphabets in. So the pattern has these random alphabets in there, or letters in there. And that's why I haven't stitched them, because once I realized that this wasn't coming through as variegated as what I had envisioned, I decided I would come through and do the letters in a similar blue, but either lighter or darker. I was a little worried that darker would draw attention to the letters, which is not what I want the focus of the piece to be, since the letters are kind of meaningless. I mean, I could change the letters and make them have some meaning, but I don't want the letters to be the focus. But I'm thinking now that the letters are small enough that that may not be the case. I have another option. I looked in my stash and I have a dinky dye, which is a lighter color. And I could do the letters if I can get my hand to go the right direction. It's always awkward working backwards from what it looks like on screen. I could do the letters in the lighter color. So what do you guys think? Do the darker color of the same Mirror Blue, or do this lighter color? Because I really can't decide. Darker or lighter? But I have a few more big motifs left to do down here. I think 3, one here, a corner one, and then this one that I've started. So a good day, I mean like a weekend day, like a whole day, or 2.5, 3 nights, I could finish the Quaker motifs. So I have a shot at finishing this year. It really will depend on how distracted I get by the seasonal stitching these few months. All right, this next one, I am determined to finish this year, and it's one of the reasons that put a bird on it may not get finished, because if I'm feeling like stitching something other than the seasonal stitching, I really want to finish this. It's the AuryTM from Toledo to Toledo. And last time you saw it, what I had left to do was this part, the monogram, and this corner, and then part of this row. I only had the top half of it done. And I am happy to report I got the rest of this done, and then this is the whole bottom. This is finished. So I just need to do this, the monogram, and the corner, and I will be finished. Guys, this is a lot of stitching on this, which I guess I knew when I got it, but I love the colors so much, and it's a good mix of, it's repetitive so you can get in a rhythm with it, but it isn't just like like that pumpkin where I'm just gonna have to stitch back and forth unless I hit a spot where I've got to have an eye or the mouth on it. It's that solid back and forth, like snowman. I love snowmen, but bored out of my mind. But this one has some repetition, so I can stitch and I don't have to keep looking at the pattern every 2 minutes or every 10 stitches kind of thing. But it's a lot of color changes. So if you don't like doing color changes, this is the one that I have all of the needles preloaded with. There's only 7 flosses in this. So I've got 7 needles preloaded with the flosses and pre-cut so that I can easily swap back and forth from colors. But I'm still loving this. This is on 28 count Fiber on a Whim Cream and Sugar, which I said was lighter than, we'll do a Cream and Sugar Milk and Honey comparison. I do like both of them. The Halloween one is on Milk and Honey, and the Toledo is Cream and Sugar. I will say the Cream and Sugar, the color is slightly different depending on the count of linen. We all know that fabrics dye differently between like Ada, even weaves, and linen. But within the linen, I have found that when you get into different counts can dye differently. Don't know why. So I'm still loving this one. When I was at Stitching in the Wild, my friend Diane, and she started it down there, and so I was pointing out, and I'll point out to anybody who hasn't seen this recently, this band, and there's one thing in this band are not charted correctly. What's charted will work, but if you want it to look like the photo on the cover of the pattern, be careful with the symbols. It's easy to tell from the picture which color you want to grab, so you almost could refer to it and the chart at the same time, which is what I did when I got up to this one after I realized that this one had even more. This is the one with the most mistakes in the charting. This band right here. This one, the only difference was this blue, this like peacock blue, and this dark blue were reversed on the pattern. This one had a lot more problems than that. So I'm not crazy about the way this one came out, but it is what it is. This is really dense stitching, and this one there was no way in heck I was tearing that out. This one there was only one thing, and I don't remember, it might be this middle thing right here, this cornflower blue in there. Everything was correct in this, from what I could tell. And everything was correct everywhere else in the chart. It's only in these 3 bands. And these two, the thing that's goofy on them is so minimal that you may not even notice it. This one, it's going to look really different than what the photograph has. But either way, oh, that's what I was trying to say. So Diane and I were talking about, you could even take this and turn it on its side and put your monogram this way. We were talking about this because I'm not crazy about the monogram for my last name initial, but that's what I want to use because nobody else in my family has an initial K anywhere in their first or last name. So nobody would maybe want it then after I was gone. And this is the kind of piece that somebody may hang on to, like one of my nieces. But then I realized, oh, but if you do this band, your peacocks would be they'd be dead or something lying on their side. So if you do this band, you're kind of committed at that point to having it oriented this way. Now, Diane was starting with this band, and if you're one of those people that thinks this is overwhelming and that you may like grind to a halt on it halfway through and never finish it, one approach is to start in the middle or start with like this band and work your way, you know, then this one, and kind of work from the inside out. And you could leave this top band off, which is what Diane was debating. You could even leave this band off. It would be a little trickier if you left this, if you wanted to leave this band off, you'd have to not do this one because, well, no, it would be an awkward end over there. It wouldn't look right. You could do it, but it would take a lot more finagling than just not stitching it. You'd have to sort of rework this bottom to have it only go from here to here. But yeah, it's definitely one of those ones, it might be worth starting in the middle. I started at the top with this band and then worked kind of down and around from there until I got down to here. And then came back in to fill these in. And what drove me was partly just, I would do a band and I wanted to make sure that I had enough points to work off of, that I could do some double and triple checking, that I had things, you know, that I counted accurately. But loving this. I'll hold it up closer so you can see. It's 6 weeks dye works and 1 DMC. It does require multiple skeins, and the pattern doesn't tell you how many skeins. I will say I bought way too many because I was paranoid about the dye lots. And this is my pattern where this blue, the dye lots are extremely different. These two outside are from one dye lot, and this middle one is a different dye lot. So you can see how the two outside little flower things look much more gray, and the middle is much more blue. And I just interspersed, you know, like in this band I used the blue, in this band I used the gray. I just tried to intersperse them so that it wouldn't look like all of a sudden I had a section that just had something happening different with the colors. So that is that one. This is my last one. This is my last one. I'm back to Halloween. So I've got the Nora CCorbett Gigi, which is one of the Bewitching Pixies. And I started this, I don't know if I started this last year or the year before. I have this on 32 count Grace Notes Caramel Kiss. And what I worked on this time was all of the lighter color in here. And the most of the hat, I had the black outline, but I didn't have any of the fill-in. And I worked on the broom over here. And I started on her arm. So I'm up to the flesh. I had hoped to finish this year. I'll hold it up close. Let me get it to focus. I had hoped to finish this year. But it calls for Kreinik, which I didn't buy back when I bought the pattern and pulled floss from stash. I mean, the nice thing with Nora CCorbett is they almost all are always just DMC, so this was just pulled from my floss stash. So it calls for 202 HL. I do have one spool of this. I stole it out of a different project. I have a Santa that I had this in with. And then I dug through my Kreinik box because I have some Kreinik that I've had for 30 years. Only over 30 years, I had another small spool of 202 HL. But I don't know. Yeah, you can kind of see the difference. The older one has like turned much coppery, burnt orange looking than this. I think this is the right color. Kreinik right now is impossible to find, although I'm starting to see some number 12 braid pop up now wrapped around the card like Rainbow Gallery. So it looks like that's what Rainbow Gallery bought Kreinik, and it looks like that's what they're gonna do, is start using that packaging instead of the spools. I can see advantages to both. I mean, the spool I can lose rolling across the room, but some of these metallics can get a real kink in them if they're wrapped around a card. So it'll be interesting to see how the Kreinik does wrapped around a card. But I think what I want to do is take this and look at Petite Treasure Braid. Like, I'm going to take a piece of this to the Needle Workshop and compare and see if I can just find a Rainbow Gallery that I can use. Because I really wanted to finish Gigi this year. I have another one of the Bewitching Pixies. So I wanted to finish her this year so that next year, or even this year, I would go ahead and get started on the second one. But I'm not going to be able to finish her, I don't think, because I don't think I'm going to be able to get my hands on the metallic that I need in time to get her finished. Because I'm not going anywhere this weekend near a needle workshop. I hadn't planned on it next weekend. The following weekend I may, but then we're up to, well, I guess that is just the 18th. So if I had everything else done on her, the only thing I have, well, yeah, so if I got her flesh, her arm and her face and shoulder and stuff here done, and then the cat is still missing his bottom half. If I got that done, I could possibly get if I got hold of a metallic the weekend of the 18th, I could probably get her done by the end of the month. I won't have her framed or anything, but I could have her finished. There's a lot of the metallic in this broom, and then like wrapped around the broom handle, and then she has like a necklace and some drapey stuff. Oh, here it is. That's metallic and or beads. So she gets some beads too. Not a crazy amount, but she does get some beads. All right. Oh, I've got one FFO. I forgot to show it first, but it's Christmas, so it's kind of fitting that it follows Halloween. I got my Samsuta Street ornament finished. I tried something different. I normally back these with felt, like wool felt, and I decided to use some suede paper, which I have from my paper crafting days. It feels like suede, and but it is paper backed, and you would use it for bookbinding. So I used to teach bookmaking and bookbinding classes, and so I have quite a bit of this left, and so I glued it on and used it instead of felt. I don't know that I liked it any better or any less. It was probably easier to cut around this, but it's done, and I just put a piece of metallic ribbony cord stuff on there. So it's ready for the Christmas tree. That was Samsuta Street. All right, I have a little bit of, like I said, my freebie table and stash to show, and then I was gonna show 2 quilts. I got 2 quilts done since I spoke with you last. One of them I'm not going to show yet because I'm going to have it hanging behind me here. I got to put it up this weekend. It's a pumpkin quilt. So, but before I get to the quilts, I do have one pattern that I bought since I saw you guys, and it's Cottage Garden Sampling Midnight Drift, and I had this on my list from the August market, and I wanted it, and nobody had it at Galleria. It wasn't quite out yet, and Gary hadn't gotten it yet. But I did get my hands on this. I love the moon. I think that's what's doing it for me. that very Nordic Quakery looking moon that's on there. This is all stitched with DMC, and it's only 9 colors. 32 count finishes about 8 1/4 by 8 1/4. I'm gonna have to look at my round frames and see. That's probably gonna drive what count of fabric I use. But I did buy that one. I forgot to mention Rami was at Stitching in the Wild, and she very nicely on the last day said everyone could go pick out a free floss. And so I got this beautiful floss from her. I had bought 2 from her at Galleria, so she was there one weekend, and then Stitching in the Wild the next. And I saw on Facebook today that she's going back to Stitching in the Wild next year. So anybody who's a Rami's Creation fan, she will be there. Her flosses are beautiful. She doesn't have a lot of colors, maybe, I don't know, 30, 40. It's probably more than that. But they are gorgeous. And oh, that's what I started to say. I had bought 2 reds from her at Galleria. And so I picked this one because it's a little lighter, more of a melon, although it's called Scarlet. But I was looking for one that would blend with the other 2 reds that I got. And I haven't looked to see and make sure this wasn't one that I already bought, because that's a possibility, but it's fine. It's a beautiful color. I'll use it. All right. This stuff from our freebie. I mean, I've got a whole like wad of things here. I don't think I've ever gotten so many top shelf patterns in a check-in freebie bag. This first one was from Shakespeare's Peddler. It's called 2 by Julia, and they are very samplery. It's not quite my style, but, and I'm not stitching that big house. You all know that. But beautiful pattern. I mean, people were really generous in what they gave Gary for the, I just dropped that on the floor, what they gave him for the freebie bag. 2 patterns from New York Dreamer. One is A House of My Own. It says A House of My Own, out of the wind and rain that I like to call home. That's cute. 175 by 58. So fairly it looks like it would be a smaller piece, and it is a smaller piece. This next one is Home Sweet Saltbox Home, and this is also from New York Dreamer. I like how the roof and the house have the pattern on them, and that is a cute rose border. It's a cute pattern. This next one I will likely stitch. It is the Proper Stitcher Hallows Manor. Really nice monochromatic Halloween pieces. And then we got from Thistles a Berry Christmas. Little stand up done there with the bears and the snow globe trees. I'm probably gonna stitch this one. There's a lot of back stitch on this. This was from Rosewood Manor, and this one she did just for Stitching in the Wild. So it says In the Wild, and it's got a lot of back stitch, but I have a feeling this would be really cute and stitched up. It's just the digital rendering. I can't show this one because it's only the chart, but this was funny. It was from Flossabilities, and it's a little tiny Gary and Ronnie with like a tiger and a lion coming in from the sides. But these two little stick people look like Gary and Ronnie. It was remarkable how with so few stitches, she did a great job capturing the likeness. This next one is also an exclusive. I don't know that it will stay that way. You know, a lot of times the exclusives, like a year later, they go ahead and publish them. This is from Quaint Rose Needle Arts, and it's spooky season. And I love how the little ghost has like the flowers on it. It's just cute. And those little boo pins made with perforated paper. How cute is that? And we all know those fancy pins for pin cushions cost a fortune. I need to remember the trick of maybe making them with paper. And this next one, let me figure out how I can show this without showing any of the chart because it's all on one page, was from Hands On Design. This one I will definitely be stitching. I love the flower wreath, how it's got little candy corns scattered in there too. But that one is super cute. I'm sure she'll release that at some point, but oh, and it's kind of hard to tell. In that bow, she has a little tiny Frankenstein pin. So I did buy one of those Frankenstein pins. They had that and the orange ribbon carded together, so it's sort of the finishing, or part of the finishing, for that piece. So that was all stuff from our freebie, our check-in bag. And there were a few patterns that, one I lost. There was a barn, for milk threads, like a quilt barn. And there were a few others in there. I was getting a little selective because my suitcase was getting too packed. And so a couple of them I gave to some folks there, but I don't know where the milk threads one went. On the freebie table, picked up a few things. So Heartstring Samplery, an ode to libraries. Not my usual style, but I love the saying. I should have probably been a librarian. I'm a very avid reader, and yeah, that might have been a bliss job. This one is from Homespun Collectibles, and it doesn't have, there's no chart name. And it's a lot of solid stitching now that I look at it, but it's only 50 by 80. And I don't know if you can tell, but the little pigtails are actually braided. So the floss is left like hanging, and then the pigtails are braided, and then the ends are held down with the little orange bows. But I just thought that was cute. The two little trick-or-treaters. And then there was a lavender and lace. This one is Queen Anne's lace. And I just think that one's beautiful. Like that garden back behind her is pretty intense. But it is what makes this one unique. It might be worth stitching this on a green. Well, no, because part of what's different about this one is the whole way it's framed out. I think I would stitch this as is. So I picked that, I got that off the freebie table. Actually, somebody carried it over to our table. I don't remember why. I think they were getting ready to put them on the freebie table. And Deb took one and I took one. I have several lavender and lace. Whenever I get to retire, I'll be doing lots more ladies than I do now. This is one of those little kits that's out of one of the British cross-stitch magazines that always has Margaret Sherry. And Margaret Sherry has the cute mice. And this was to make a mouse birthday card, which I won't make it into a card, but I will stitch those two cute little mice. And then Hello from Liz Matthews, the 5th day of Christmas, sampler and tree. I actually would like to do the sampler. And the nice thing is, even though it says peace, it's really just like a winter Nordic scene. So I would keep that out through the winter. In fact, I may only put it out after Christmas. I got so much Christmas stuff. And then the last thing, this is out of a magazine. It's a Stony Creek magazine, and I didn't take the whole magazine. I just took the pattern that I wanted, but this stocking is so cute. That snowman with the little mouse on his head. What I really want to stitch is the mouse that's on his hat. And that little mouse could be stitched to stand alone and would be stinking cute. But that little mouse, I think when I looked at it, I figured it's about 30 colors in that little tiny mouse. So, kicking it old school where you gotta keep changing floss color to get any kind of variegation in there. One last thing from Garon's shop, and I did look and he has them online too. He has these great metal pieces. This one's actually 2 pieces that you stack on top of each other for the tops of strawberries. And it's a soft metal, so you can bend it to sort of form it around your strawberry and make it fit perfectly. So he had this one that's in 2 pieces, and then he had this other style, 2 styles that are all, I mean, it's 1 piece. It's not 2 pieces. And these ones have little tiny cups that are designed to put rhinestones in. But like that looks like a poinsettia. It's picking up too much glare. And this one's not quite as Christmassy looking, but wouldn't this be gorgeous? Either of them really, this silver color on a Christmas strawberry. So I need to stitch a couple more strawberries. I only ever did one. I did the one that was from the Erica Michaels Sewing Bee pattern. But I gave the strawberry away in a smalls exchange. So I only have the little pin cushion that I stitched. This sits out in my dining room all the time. All right. I think that is everything I have for cross stitch this time. Oh, nope, I lied. So I don't know if you guys have been looking, but the Jingle Ball classes are out. And I wasn't sure if I was going to do Jingle Ball this year. Last year I signed up for it. I forgot about it. Then I was just pretty busy, and I didn't even get to look at the class that I had paid for. I mean, I have the pattern, but it's an expensive pattern if you don't go to the class. But look at what's at this year's. It's another Stacy Nash Animal Crackers. And she's so darn cute. And it's a mouse. So I absolutely am going to Jingle Ball so that I can stitch that. And her class, she gives tips on how to create the template, you know, how to figure out how to cut around the animal cracker and sew them together. Just some assembly tips. So that one caught my eye. And then if I'm gonna sign up for Jingle Ball and take that, I may also consider these two. So Lindy Stitches has these really cute snowman ornaments, and then Liz Matthews has these, she calls them Christmas snow globes, but they're mason jars with perforated paper stitched pieces in there. Whoops. But those mittens, I love the fuzzy tops on them. Like they're very filled mittens, and then they've got that fuzzy top, so the whole thing is very puffy looking. So yeah, I may it's looking like I will be doing Jingle Ball. All right, I'm going to switch gears and move into quilting now. I keep meaning to, the quilt behind me, the fabric was called Cheeky. It was from Moda, from Urban Chicks. They're the ones that do some retro Christmas, and they have one Halloween line, I think, out. I mean, I know they have one because I have a quilt done with it. Oh, I gotta get that out. It's a cat. It's a Halloween cat. But anyway, it's from them. The pattern is called Expanding Star, and it's from Quilty Love. So you can do the PDF online. It's super easy. It's all half square triangles, like you can see here pretty easily. This blue and this pink, that's the half square triangle pair. So you do need somewhere, either a big bed you can lay it out on, design board, design wall, something. You do need something to keep all these pieces in order so that you can get the sort of the, well, they're not rings, the progressively larger stars to each be a different colorway. I don't remember now. I had to have seen this pattern done by someone else because the Quilty Love pattern is all solid colors, and it has one color in particular in there that I absolutely hate, and I would not have ever stitched a quilt looking at that pattern. So I had to have seen something else stitched using that pattern. And then when I did, it was around the time that I had bought a collection of this fabric. The back is pieced squares. I think this might have been a layer cake. So there's some layer cake squares in there and a couple big pieces that really have too big of a pattern to work in a quilt. Like wouldn't have worked for this, where I needed to keep a colorway going to get the star to do what I needed it to do. But so that's that quilt. And then this is one I told you guys about a month ago that I had taken 4 quilts to a long arm. I'd never had anything long armed before. I took them to Guided Star, which is she is in the Lancaster, Pennsylvania area, and I have seen a lot of quilts that she long-armed, and she does a beautiful job. So she was a great one too for consulting and stuff. So I can't get back. Well, let me roll back. Hold please. Showing quilts is always awkward unless I film it separate and splice it together, but this is huge. There's no way I can show all this, so I'm just going to hold it up like this. Because this is queen size. This is for my bed. This pattern is called Card Trick. It's from Missouri Star. And you can either buy the pattern or if you just on YouTube search Missouri Star Card Trick, this is the first video that comes up. And in the Missouri Star videos, she's very good about, I mean, she tells you what size to cut everything. She shows you how to sew it together, how all the piecing would be done. It's almost like the pattern would be a reference. I do have the pattern. I made this at a weekend retreat where we were all doing card trick. That was fun to see everybody's. But this was mine, and I started out with a jelly roll. These were in the original jelly roll. It was a Bernard, this, and there's this pink one. It was a Bernard text line. I think this is in it. And then I just pulled in other greens from my stash. I've got a lot of green in stash, fabric stash. So it's quilt size, or quilt size. It better be quilt size. It's queen size. And you've probably seen the back because I'm wrestling around holding this and it keeps flashing forward. This is the back, this wild big pattern. But this green was the perfect tealy green, and then these two funky greens in the flowers are actually in some of the smaller pieces in here. Like this has that yellowy green. Even the Bernard text, this was more from that Bernard text, has some of that yellowy green in there. So the quilting is more of a modern kind of loopy. I think it's showing up on camera okay. I did use wool batting in this, and I think in my head I was picturing this loopy pattern bigger. She did send me a picture of this when she had like the first row done, and I did approve this sizing. So this was not star. It is more densely quilted than what I would normally do, but I normally use Warm and Natural, and Warm and Natural is needle scrimmed, and so you can have your quilting farther apart, and the batting won't ball up or do anything weird as you use the quilt. This is a Hobbs wool, and it mentioned 4 inches as the maximum distance between the quilting lines. So it probably did need to be dense. It's not as puffy. So Quilty Love, or Expanding Stars by Quilty Love, this is also done with wool. This was the first quilt I did using a wool batting. And you can almost even see on camera that it's very poofy. But the quilting isn't as dense, and it's a different brand of wool. That one is Quilter's Dream, and this is a Hobbs wool. So it's not as puffy. Part I think because of brand, and part just because it is more densely quilted. But I fell in love with this. I did get it bound. I did machine bind it. There was no way I was hand stitching a queen size quilt binding on. I've got cross stitch to do, people. I can't be sitting doing mindless binding. I hate binding anyway. It reminds me too much of hemming pants, and I'm on the shorter side, and I have had to hem pants most of my life, and I hate hemming pants. And my mom hated hemming pants, so I was pretty young where she showed me how, and I had to hem my own pants. And that's what quilt binding reminds me. It's not that different than hemming pants. So I got this one done, and I will show next time the pumpkin quilt, which I had long arm. Absolutely love the quilting on it as well, and I machine bound it too, since it's kind of a short season quilt. The 2 that I have left that I got quilted, more work went into the quilt top themselves, and I won't use them on my bed. They will be more display quilts. One of them I may use on the sofa, but and they're not queen size. So those I'm going to invest in the time that it will take to do the hand binding. But I'm doing a hand stitch weekend right before Thanksgiving with a couple friends. And so I think I will get the binding sewn on, ready to be flipped and hand stitched down so that I can take it and do it that weekend. Because I'll have good distractions. I won't get bored just doing this stupid binding. So those are my quilts that I had to show. Sorry, this one was so much kind of flailing around with it. I probably need to just figure out how to, or I know how. I just need to, what I can't figure out is where I would show this that I would have decent lighting. I mean, I'd have to almost film it outside in advance, and I'm not quite that organized with these Flosstubes, so. But Missouri Star card trick, super easy. I did that entire queen size top in a weekend. So the weekend retreats, they don't do these anymore, but they used to start at like 5 on Friday, and then they ended at, I'm pretty sure that one would have ended at noon on Sunday, because I know who the teacher was for that one. So really 2 days. I mean, it was spread over 3, but it was only a few, 5 to midnight on Friday or 5 to 11, and then kind of 9 to noon on Sunday. So call that one day, and then Saturday was a full long day. So in a weekend, queen size quilt top. Super, super easy. Nothing to match up on it. Well, a tiny bit to match up on it, but nothing tricky. It's all squares. None of it's triangles or anything that does wonky things as you press it. So a very easy and forgiving pattern. So I think that's everything for this time. I thought this was going to be a short one, and I've run the full hour. But I hope you all are having a wonderful fall, and I hope none of you are in the Outer Banks or any of the coastal areas that are getting hard. I've seen some clips. Well, I've seen a lot of clips from the Outer Banks, which just makes me cry. But I've seen some clips from the Delaware beaches as well, or the Maryland ones that are just south of Delaware. Like Ocean City, Maryland is just south of Delaware. And where you had a huge beach, that a month ago was covered with people on their beach towels and with their beach umbrellas and all the things. And now the water is just, it's not there. It's covered with water. So I imagine it's going to take a little bit for that to recede, and some of it's going to require them coming in and they dump sand or sometimes tires and crazy things in the ocean to create a barrier to prevent that from continuing to erode. But anyway, enough about that. How did I get on that topic? Oh, because I was saying hopefully you're all safe and enjoying beautiful fall weather and are not in the areas dealing with all of that mess. I know we had some bad flooding in Arizona too. I've got some employees out that way. So yeah, stay safe, happy stitching, and I'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Bye.